I'm Jillian, a soon-to-be LSU graduate, journalist, and cooking enthusiast on a mission to inspire a deeper connection to the food that we eat.
Welcome to my kitchen.
I'm traveling around the state to meet the hardworking farmers and ranchers behind market booths and grocery store shelves, and to explore the journey my favorite ingredients make to my plate. So join me on a culinary adventure around the Bayou State to hear the stories behind the farmland we drive past on I-10, I-49, and all of the country roads in between. Let's discover what's made in Louisiana.
Today on Made in Louisiana, we're in Sulphur to find locally sourced microgreens at the Father's Garden.
The Sonniers of the Father's Garden spend their weekends setting up shop at the Charlestown Farmers Market in downtown Lake Charles. Their bright microgreens and homegrown enthusiasm have become a hallmark of Saturday morning markets.
Basically, when you say microgreens, it's just an age. It's an age of the plant. So you have sprouts, you have microgreens, you have baby greens, and then you have adult vegetables.
Nobody knew what a microgreen was. They were like, oh, you have plants. What do I do? Do I plant these? And I'm like, no, you eat them.
As the adult vegetable plant grows, all that nutrition spreads out through the plant. Well, as we're harvesting at the age of microgreen, we're actually able to contain all those nutrients right there on the spot.
Their growing process starts back in Sulphur, where rows of plants line their indoor home garden's walls.
I'll go ahead and measure out every single seed on Mondays. And then Tuesdays, we get the trays ready with the soil in them. And then we just start spreading seed. We actually did a time lapse the other night. And it took us about 40 minutes to do it all. The time lapse was like 50 seconds.
Each green has different needs, from moisture levels to sunlight. Take broccoli microgreens as an example.
Broccoli, you literally sprinkle all the way across the soil evenly and then water. Put a tray on top, which actually simulates it being in the soil. So they'll germinate for about three to 4 days, and some differ even from that. Some go a little bit longer, some go a little less. But broccoli in particular, it'll germinate for about 3 to 4 days. You'll check on it, maybe give it a little bit of water, depending on your humidity levels at wherever you're growing them. After those 3 or 4 days, they'll go into blackout. Well, if you don't go into blackout, you're going to be growing these little bitty short plants. Whenever you put them in blackout, that's what makes them what's called leggy. They'll get leggy. They'll get a longer stem. So you're basically keeping the light from them, so they're growing looking for that light, and that's where you get your height in your plants from. Once they basically start pushing that blackout tray up, you'll see a little gap between the two trays. Pull the tray off and put them in light, and then they'll be in light for probably another 3 to 4 days, give or take. Once they go into light, you'll start doing bottom watering, where they'll be watering from the roots up.
It's been a year of trial, error, and growth.
There's a whole learning curve. You don't just learn how to germinate things overnight. There's research, there's studying.
I think we started with probably about 10 trays, and we were alternating 5 trays here, 5 trays there. It grew. I think now we're alternating about 16 to 19 trays a week.
But the Sonniers have not only found a growing system that works for them, but a lifestyle too.
I was being called to do something else. Didn't know what that was, but started seeing these posts on Instagram about microgreens. Never heard of it, had no idea, knew nothing about it, but I was extremely intrigued, and I started praying about it. And next thing you know, I got with my wife Samantha. I was like, hey, let's give this a shot and see what happens. And we did, and he blossomed it from there.
The farm's name, the Father's Garden, is a reference to their family's faith and the foundational role it's played in the business.
And we prayed about it. We prayed a lot about it. It's a very big step, very scary, costly. So it was a big decision, and it was a leap of faith, 100%.
Microgreens have taken root in Sam and Samantha's home. And on social media, they share an inside look at their garden, nutrition facts, and of course, microgreen meal ideas.
In salads, on sandwiches, I make sushi bowls and just top that off. I use them all the time. Sometimes I even dehydrate them and make them into a powder. I'll grind them down into a powder, and that's the easiest way to get them into my kids' food, is to just kind of hide it in there.
As the Father's Garden grows, Sam and Samantha hope to continue crafting a community that starts on Saturday mornings and continues in their customers' kitchens.
Getting somebody to come to the booth so that we can explain what we're doing, why we're here, why we believe in these little bitty greens behind us, and being able to make that connection with somebody just walking by, a stranger you've never met. It was a lot of work, but it was very rewarding in the end.
I think that people like to see that if it's very fresh, it's harvested right in front of you. You know it's going from this table to yours.
Welcome to my kitchen, but as you can see today, I am not in my college apartment because I don't live there anymore. I'm actually moving to New York City tomorrow to attend culinary school, but before I left, I was so excited we got to squeeze in one more Made in Louisiana episode with some farmers closer to home. So today I'm in Westlake, I'm in my house, in my kitchen, and I'm really excited to film an episode here because this is where I really learned to love to cook. Sam and Samantha gave us a stack of different microgreens to use today. And so first we're gonna do a little taste test to see which ones I think would go best with what we're making today, which you might be able to tell based on the ingredients. We're making a Parmesan risotto. So we have 5 options: broccoli, cantaloupe, spicy salad mix, rainbow Swiss chard, and Triton radish. I have my suspicions on which one I think is gonna go best, but we're just gonna do a big taste test. We're gonna start off with broccoli. I feel like these are microgreens that I see maybe a little more often. They have that like little classic microgreen look. Let's give it a taste. Broccoli is definitely an option because it has a nice peppery taste, almost like arugula, that I think would go so well with the risotto. So let me put that one to the side, but we still have 4 more. Next, I'm trying the rainbow Swiss chard. They're so pretty and pink. I like this one too. It's very bright and crisp. Okay, these are all good options. I don't know what we're gonna pick. Next is the Triton radish. This one's like kind of almost lemony, I would say, kind of basil-y. I really like this one too. This one has a lot of flavor. Next is cantaloupe. I've actually tried this one at the farmers market before and it's so interesting. What's so interesting about this one is it genuinely tastes like cantaloupe. Like if you did a blind taste test, I feel like you would only know because the texture is different. It has such like a bright, fruity flavor to it. It tastes like cantaloupe, legitimately. Okay, I can't really decide which ones I want to use out of the radish, broccoli, and Swiss chard, so I think we're just going to mix the 3. I prepped all of our ingredients, so now we can really start to cook. I diced 1 large shallot. Half of an onion would be great here too. I just love a shallot. And then I also finely diced a couple of cloves of garlic, probably about 4. Next, I grated some Parmesan and Reggiano because this is the base flavor that we're working with today. I really do recommend using a high quality Parmesan and grating it yourself, and it's just so delicious. Really just treat yourself. I have 2 pots on the stove, and on one of them I just added 4 cups of chicken stock. Chicken broth would be great here too, but basically what we want to do is heat it up. That way when we add it to the rice a little bit later on, we don't drop the temperature of the pot. So when you cook risotto, you do a method, I believe it's called risottare. Don't quote me, that's probably not right. But you add warm stock or another cooking liquid very slowly, and that makes it really starchy and really creamy without adding any cream at all. I'm also turning our main pot to medium-low heat and adding a few tablespoons of butter. This is actually butter that my mom and I brought back from Paris because we went to the Olympics this summer. Our butter is melted, so I'm adding in the shallot and garlic. It's about to smell amazing in here. And then when you're making a dish that's simple like this, it's so important to season in layers, so we're going to do a little pinch of salt. The shallots and the garlic have been sauteing for about 5 minutes. They're nice and fragrant now and a little translucent. And now I'm going to add in 1 cup of unwashed arborio rice. We're mixing that around in the garlic, shallots, and butter and letting it get nice and toasty for about 2 minutes. It's been about 2 minutes. The rice is smelling a little bit nutty, so I know that we're ready. And now I'm just going to add in 1/4 cup, a little splash of white wine. You can use any white wine here as long as it's dry, nothing too sweet. They say you shouldn't cook with wines that you wouldn't drink. But I'm 22, and so I have very cheap wine taste. And so for me, that's any wine. But for you, if you wouldn't drink it, don't put it in your food. And if you want to leave the wine out, you can totally use a little splash of lemon juice and some water, or even more chicken stock. That would be fine too. The wine has been absorbed by the rice, so we can start adding in our warm cooking liquid. I'm going to move this pot over so I don't make a mess. Just a few ladles at a time. I'll start with about 1 cup and go from there. Now you really just stand over the pot and stir, constantly as the rice absorbs the stock, and then once it looks a little bit dry, you can start adding more. Usually this takes about 15 to 18 minutes until it's fully cooked. You might not use all 4 cups of the cooking liquid, that's totally fine, or you might use more. You kind of just eye it, and once you get the hang of it, it's really so simple. We'll be here for a minute, so I'm gonna... It's been about 18 minutes of stirring and adding stock, and I think we're in a pretty good place. As I've eaten more risottos at different restaurants and different places, I've learned that risotto is kind of better when it's a little bit looser, when there's still a pretty saucy sauce. So I recommend not letting it over-absorb where there's like no sauce left, but again, this is a super, super easy dish. You really can't mess it up, and so if you do that, no worries, I bet it's just as good. I have about 1 cup of stock left, which is good because I'm going to start adding in our Parmesan, but I still want this risotto to be a little loose. I want it to have a sauce. And so as I add the Parmesan, I'm probably going to want to thin it out with some more stock. So I would say this is about, I don't know, 1.5 cups of Parmesan. I'm probably just going to start by adding about 1/2 cup and going from there. You can just give it a taste and see if you like how cheesy it is. Good, but I think we can add a little more. So it's probably about 1 cup altogether, maybe. I'm also gonna add a little bit of freshly cracked black pepper. This is my dad's pepper cannon. A little goes a long way with it. I'm gonna add just a little more of that hot stock. I probably used about 3.5 cups total. Risotto for me is one of those dishes that I struggle to make look as pretty as it tastes, but luckily today's special ingredient is going to help with that. Here's our final plate of risotto with these beautiful microgreens. I think the pops of color really help out this otherwise kind of plain looking risotto. I think it looks gorgeous, but let's see how it tastes. I feel like the microgreens really shine through on this dish. They bring so much flavor to the plate. This whole episode has definitely inspired me to use microgreens more often. And if you feel the same way, you can give the Father's Garden a follow on Facebook. You can also shop with them if you're in the area at the Charlestown Farmers Market on Saturdays. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of Made in Louisiana. We might be taking a little bit of a hiatus because I will not be living in Louisiana starting tomorrow, but who knows, maybe we can find some Louisiana natives in New York City. But until then, thanks for watching. See you next time.